Hello and welcome back to another episode of Raw and Real with Stephanie Fernandez. And I'm so excited about this episode today. I'm joined by Lindsey from the Peaceful Sleep Secrets, and we're going to talk about late bedtime. I know that this is something that a lot of parents struggle with, even if you don't have a child who is neurodivergent, but late bedtime, I know for myself as a mom, it really freaks me out and my husband. So hi, Lindsey. Thank you so much for being here today.
Oh yeah, no, thank you for having me. And like you just said, I know it's something that a lot of parents struggle with. Like when you've had a long day with your little ones or you've been at work, you want that kind of set bedtime, and they need it too. Little ones need their sleep. So when your little one is up and bedtime is a battle, it can have a real impact on everybody in the family. So I'm excited to share some ideas and things that can help with that with you today.
Yeah, that would be lovely. Do you want to introduce yourself to our audience today?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so my name's Lindsey Clark. I am a baby, child, and autism sleep specialist. That's always a bit of a mouthful. And basically, my background's in education. So before I was doing this, I used to be a teacher. I worked mainly with infants, but across primary. And yeah, I had my own children and had a change in career as well after they were pretty challenging sleepers. I became more interested in that. I got help with their sleep, and decided to change a career to do something more flexible around them as well. So I'm still helping families, which is great. A lot of the skills are transferable. I'm used to talking to parents about their children. So yeah, I'm just kind of helping and teaching in a different way now. So both very rewarding jobs, obviously. Just this one is that bit more flexible. So yeah.
Yeah. And I can hear that you bring your personal experience as well into into your work.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't think, I mean, you know, when you have children, or certainly when you have a baby, that your sleep is going to be broken. But I don't think I was given any form of like realistic expectations of how that was going to be. And I do know that some babies do sleep pretty well, even from the start, you know, will wake up for a couple of feeds, and that's fine. You expect to be up, you expect your little one to need a feed in the night. But actually, my daughter was up, she never slept more than 45 minutes in, you know, and I was at the point where I didn't get to sleep in between her wakes. So there were nights where I would be up all night awake. She wanted to be latched on the whole time. Co-sleeping was no better. Like honestly, I tried everything.
Yeah.
So anything a parent tells me they've done with their child to do with sleep, like I never have any judgment because I have tried everything with mine. And when you're in that desperate place where you are really sleep deprived and it's affecting your mental health and things like that, you will do anything to get sleep. So actually, you know, I've been there. It was really, really hard. I thought the second time around, I know what I'm doing this time, but my son was completely different to my daughter. And that's the thing, like different temperaments are different. What works for one baby is not going to work for another, which is why there is no manual that tells us what to do, is there, in any aspect of parenting, really? So yeah, I thought, well, I'll just do what I did with my daughter to get her sleeping better with my son. Didn't work. So yeah, we needed a sort of different approach, a bit of a sort of gentle approach. He's still like that, actually. He's still more of a sensitive sleeper. They're 3 and 6 now, so this was a while ago. But yeah, he is still much more sensitive. Like things throw him off a lot easier. Like even if he just gets a little bit overtired, we'll get an overnight wake, and I have to keep on top of him more. So it is just that every child is different. But that sleep deprivation had a massive effect on me. I got postnatal anxiety through lack of sleep. Had my son in lockdown, so that didn't obviously help either. But just having sleep again made such a huge difference. And I know it can for so many families. I literally talked to a mum last week who said, lack of sleep is literally ruining my life. Like I'm not enjoying it.
Mm.
And that's when there's solutions. That's just horrible to hear that somebody's not enjoying their time with their baby. That's how I felt as well. So
Yeah.
I can understand that.
Yeah. But sometimes we cannot think straight of finding support, especially when you're so sleep deprived, you're just trying to survive. You cannot even think what to cook for dinner. You cannot even organize yourself to go out for a walk with a pram when you're sleep deprived. You're just, I remember I was so deep sleep deprived one day that I walked down from our apartment with my son in my arms to pick up the pram. and I walked into the wrong backyard to pick up my pram. And I was like, they stole my pram. Like, it's not here. It was a
No.
completely different backyard. Like, I don't even remember walking further than I should have.
Yeah.
So not being able to seek that support is also related to how little our how bad our brains function when we don't sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your brain is, when you haven't had sleep, you're more emotional, you're more irrational, but also your perceptions of things change, they alter.
Yeah.
And studies have been done that liken it to when you've been drinking and your perceptions have changed. You know, I've definitely had nights where I thought, I can't walk down the stairs in the morning with my baby in my arms because my legs are shaking, where I'm so, like, just so weak from not being replenished night after night after night. And yeah, I mean, that they say that you shouldn't get into a car if you've had less than 5 hours sleep, especially if it's broken sleep. And there must be many, many mums that do. And I know that I have. When you haven't got a choice, especially if you're going to work, and what do?
Exactly.
But it's horrible to think, of that it can have that much effect as well.
Mhm.
But sadly, it can have devastating effects, which is what obviously I want to avoid for people. And I definitely think there is also the thing of, you feel like you failed if you ask for help as a mum. And I know you've talked about this before, the mum guilt.
Yeah.
I know that when I was looking for support with sleep, I did it in the middle of the night when I was desperate, just Googled sleep help. Didn't really know that sleep consultants existed, to be honest. I just Googled anyone that was going to help me with my baby to do with sleep. And I did find, a local lady, but I didn't tell anyone that I'd done that because I felt embarrassed and like I should know what to do, because you should instinctively know when you're a mum.
Yeah.
Everyone else's baby's sleeping, I must be doing something wrong. So I felt a bit like embarrassed and like I'd failed. And I think probably, if I felt like it, I guess other mums must feel like it too. I think there is more talk about it now. This is obviously like 6 years ago. But it's hard sometimes, isn't it, to admit that you're really struggling with something.
It is. And I feel we are in this world where we support parents, so we know what is out there. And I feel also that my sense of the average reality is skewed because I'm in this bubble. But when I talk to my friends who had just had children, they're still not aware of all the support that is out there. And there's a lot of that guilt that comes up, especially around sleep or feeding, or when you have a colicky baby and they just cry and cry and cry. Well, you wanted that. So I wanted that. So can I actually complain? Can I actually ask for help? Because that's what I wanted. But I didn't know it will be so hard. I didn't know I didn't have the resources. And certainly I didn't know what kind of baby I will have. Just like you said, there are different kids. And there's something that really landed with me when you just said your two children are so different, because mine are two. My youngest has late bedtime almost every night. He just doesn't fall asleep as calmly and quickly and early as his brother. His brother goes to bed 7:30, he's out. Two minutes later I go in and he's already gone, but he's up at 6 every morning. And the younger one, he just has later bedtime, but loves to sleep in the morning. On the weekend, he's 4 and he sleeps until 9:30. He loves it. So what does one do? And this is what we're going to talk today about.
But partly that will be in their genetic makeup as well. It is true that some people are just naturally early birds or night owls. And you're most likely to follow what your parents are as well. Me and my partner, we will both stay up till midnight and then struggle to get up in the morning. But that's just naturally what they're like. If I go to bed early, I lay there awake. So it's, certainly if I went to bed before 11, I would just lay there awake anyway. And I think my daughter's the same. And it is all to do with your personality. Like, she takes a long time to switch off most nights, I would say. But it is just that some people's personality their brain is very busy, very switched on, and it makes it more difficult, or they need a longer time to calm down, relax and unwind. And we can explain that to older children, and we know that ourselves. But a baby doesn't know that, or a young toddler is not going to know that. So we have to put those things in place for our child to help them with the sleep. And whereas, like you said, some other little ones, naturally, their body clock is kind of set quite early, and they'll switch off straight away, but then we'll probably be up a bit earlier.
Yeah.
And that,
I don't know what I like more, actually.
no, yeah, waking my daughter up for school is not always the best when she's like, "Oh, mommy, get off," and she's trying to I'm trying to get the covers off her. But it is nice on the weekend.
It is.
Because they're not there. Like, my son's there at my bedside, like straight away 6 o'clock.
Yeah, but there is this aspect of we, as you said in the beginning, we are tired with a whole day. We are looking forward to that time where we just calm down, maybe tidy up the house in peace, where it's not a mess right 10 minutes afterwards again, or where I just can relax with my partner, have a glass of wine or a tea, and we just talk uninterruptedly. I think the biggest issues for us at home is that we have so much patience for the kids until we put them in their room and it's like, now it's bedtime and we want to close the door, and it's like, but mommy, and this and this and that. And it's like as if all the patience all of a sudden vanishes, because now mentally I finished this. I finished parenting for the day. I just want to close the door. But how does one do with late bedtime to make this not a fight every night, and actually a nice experience, because bedtime can be cozy and connected and good. A good day starts with a good night.
Oh yeah, definitely. And that, the wake up happier, ready to day, refreshed, energy and all those things. Yeah, it makes such a difference. I mean, it's different. Late bedtimes can be caused by different things, and it's going to be different depending on the age of a child. So obviously I'm going to be talking very generally as to some of the most common reasons for it. And in younger babies, if they are really fighting bedtime or getting very upset at bedtime, kind of before they're verbal, that kind of age, before they're a toddler, often it is to do with them already being overtired or overstimulated, particularly if they seem tired. And then it's almost like they perk up and get that second wind, where they get that kind of like almost like hyperactive.
Yeah.
And you think, oh, I thought you were tired, but now you're not. And often I will work with families where they say, well, they're just not tired at bedtime. And I've done consultations where I'm doing the consultation in the evening, and they're sort of, the 2-year-old is, or 18-month-old is still running around, and it's sort of 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. And they're saying, look, they're just not tired. But I think it's that they've gone past that point of tiredness. And what happens in the body is the body produces extra cortisol, which acts like a massive shot of adrenaline, because they think, well, if your body's thinking, well, you haven't gone to sleep when you're tired, so I'll keep you awake. I'll do the job. And it's, to keep you awake. And you get this rush of adrenaline, which makes it really difficult to switch off. And if a little one hasn't had good daytime sleep as well, if they're, under age 3-ish, then they're still going to need daytime naps. And if they've had too long awake in the day, or not enough of that daytime sleep, or it hasn't been well balanced, they've had a big long nap in the morning, but maybe had a long awake period before bed, overtiredness is going to build up. It's going to make it more difficult for them to go to sleep. So making sure they've had that age appropriate daytime awake time and age appropriate sleep in the day is going to help them to switch off at bedtime. And for little ones, the melatonin, which is the hormone that's produced that helps us fall asleep and stay asleep, studies have found that's usually at its highest between sort of 7 and 8. And your body produces more when you're in the dark. So that's why we want to start a nice calm bedtime routine prior to 7 p.m. so that the body starts producing melatonin, and having that bedtime routine, will help your little one, if they've got a busy brain, to switch off. And some little ones do need longer than others. Some are fine with 20 minutes, some need more like 40 minutes to be able to switch off and do those calming activities before it's time to go to sleep. And that will obviously help them to switch off. But if you get to that point where they are getting really alert again, you know, you've kind of missed the window and it's going to be harder. So sometimes moving bedtime earlier can actually help more. Does that make sense?
Yeah, which sometimes feels a bit counterintuitive, isn't it? Because we feel, no, we just wait a little longer so they fall asleep easier, so they're really tired. But
yeah,
I can actually relate to this feeling of being so tired that it's so difficult to fall asleep.
yeah,
And I can only imagine how this feels for a little brain, a little human that has so many impressions throughout the day, and they have to work through all the impressions and experiences and feelings and thoughts, whereas
yeah.
my brain is kind of used to it. But if you are still learning how to walk, how to talk, how to eat, how to engage, it's just so much that the brain just gets too tired. Sometimes I feel I have like a brick here on my forehead. I'm so tired, but I cannot sleep. So it makes total sense what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's when regressions happen. Some people
Mm.
agree with the term regression, some don't, you know, whatever you want to call it. There are lots of different names: progression, regression. Some people call them leaps, developments. You know, when a child is, when they've got something big going on, like they've started walking or crawling, that is going to affect their sleep, because what happens is, or in many cases, it will affect sleep because their little brain has opened up to a whole new world of possibilities.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I can do this and this now. I can reach that. I can get up the stairs. And they're buzzing with excitement. Sometimes that comes out as crying because it's overwhelming and it's different.
Yeah.
So, you know, often, you know, you between a sort of 8 and 10 months, I find that there's a period that a lot of families struggle with because of those developments. There's a lot of development going on at that age, often around 18 months, age 2 again, like language is exploding then. And it becomes overwhelming for them. They'll say, oh, they've been going to bed peacefully for ages. And now suddenly we've got fighting bedtime. It's really difficult. They're standing up, they're crying, whereas before they weren't standing. And what do we do? But the best thing you can do in that situation is be calm yourself and consistent yourself, because something like that will pass. But it's about giving your little one extra reassurance, whether that be some extra cuddles, sitting with them as they go to sleep, something like that, until they're actually, you know, they're looking for that security from you, because everything else is changing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So what I hear is that it's not a straight line onto sleeping through the night, but there's lots of phases that can feel like we're falling back to square one and we're doing something wrong and we will never sleep through the night and we will never sleep again. But what I hear is that there are phases that are just more challenging due to the development of a child than others, and that shall pass as well.
yeah, exactly. If they've been sleeping well, and then something like that happens, and you notice they are going through development, or there's they're at one of those common ages that I mentioned. I mean, something like that, if it is purely developmental, it should pass in anything between sort of 1 and 3 weeks maximum. Once they've got used to that skill, the novelty wears off. They should go back to sleeping how they were before. If it carries on, then that's when you want to look for, okay, what else is going on here? Because a lot of the time parents can end up thinking, oh, it's a regression, but the regression doesn't stop. So in that case, you know, if it's a developmental regression, it will stop and it will pass and sleep will go back to normal. But if it doesn't, then it's probably something else, or there's something else we need to look at. So it's, yeah, development can affect sleep, but it's not the only thing that affects sleep.
You mentioned calming activities and you talked very briefly about routine. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? What is a routine? How can a routine look like? And do you have some examples of calming activities for kids?
Yeah, I mean, traditionally, and I'm talking more about sort of neurotypical children here, doing something like a bath to start your bedtime routine can be helpful, because actually it lowers the body temperature, which happens naturally when we fall asleep anyway. So you're kind of giving your body that trigger that, okay, we're going into that sleepy state. And often parents will say to me, but they get really excited in the bath. Like, should I try and keep the bath calm? I think it's pretty much impossible to keep the bath calm with a child. So I wouldn't worry too much about kind of what they're doing, like in the bath where they're splashing and playing and things. It's just really having that core temperature go down that will start the routine. But also, if it's the only time in the day where you do have the bath, for example, it gives your little one a really clear message. Okay, this is the start of bedtime. And even if you don't do a bath every day, which, you know, I don't with my children, even just going to the bathroom, having a little face wash or teeth brush is going to still send them that signal that actually, okay, we go to the bathroom, then we go into our room. And I always recommend that parents go straight from the bathroom to the room the child is sleeping in where possible, because if you go back downstairs or start visiting other rooms, that can stimulate them again. So actually going into their room, if you can have the lights kind of dimmed a little or curtains shut, that's a good idea. It doesn't need to be dark at that point, but just so that it's kind of a bit more calming than having bright light on. And really, like the steps of a bedtime routine can be adapted to whatever kind of suit your family. So if little ones still having milk, obviously you could give them milk, have a story. Little ones can take in stories even from as young as 4 months old. So they can actually pick up, a book, kind of the pages turn, and they can look at the pictures and things like that, even from a very young age. So it is beneficial, even if you're just looking at a picture, even to do a book with a young baby. And then having things like singing a lullaby. It can be really useful as well just to sing the same lullaby before each sleep, because it acts as a trigger for your child. They think, okay, every time I hear that, it means I'm going to sleep next. So it's kind of like this kind of subconscious trigger that helps them realize it's time to go to sleep. And things like putting them in their sleeping bag. If you use a sleeping bag, that will help too. Again, that gives them another cue that it's going to be time to go to sleep. So things like that, really. And like I said, as long as you're doing them in the same order each night, so your child learns this is what we do, then, what order you do those in is kind of up to you, really. With neurodivergent children, it's slightly different in that often there will be sensory issues that we kind of need to take account of. It's often a good idea to plan in some activities that are going to help them regulate. So it might not be the typical things you see. So like we are often told, avoid screens before bedtime, which is good advice, because screens give off blue light, which stop us producing melatonin. It's going to make it harder for us to go to sleep, because melatonin, that sleepy hormone, is produced in the eye. So the screens stop us from going to sleep. So I'm terrible for this. So I need to take my own advice, because I'm always looking at my phone before bed. But avoiding screens with your little one generally at least an hour before bedtime is good advice. But if you've got a child who is autistic, for example, and screen is the thing that helps them to regulate, which in many cases it is, having some screen time before bed is going to be more beneficial for them than not. Doing things like it's very unique to each child. So like sometimes if I'm working with a neurodivergent child, they need some time. Like my daughter's currently being assessed for autism, and we have something called crazy time at the start of our bedtime routine, where she does just jump on the beds, get it all out, because if she doesn't have that time, she finds it more difficult to sleep. So planning in those kind of bigger motor activities can help if that's the thing that the individual child needs. The other thing with neurodivergent children is sometimes a bath is too stimulating. So that's when I would suggest not doing it before bedtime. So there are distinct differences that are going to help different children to settle well. I hope I've explained that clearly enough.
It's so interesting, because a lot of the times we hear that don't overexcite them before going to bed, but there are children who just need that, and where a bath is actually not calming but rather activating, so they would benefit from a bath or shower in the morning before they start their day. So I'd love to hear that, because it means we are often trying so hard to do the right thing, but we are not looking at the child and is it actually working? Like, is it received well? Does does it have the impact or the outcome that we want for our children? So I love that you talked about that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think sometimes parents are scared to try something different as well. You're told so often, do this, do this, do this. And then if you're doing something, even if it's not really working, you don't want to change it because you don't want to make things worse. Actually, you won't know until you really try. Like obviously when I work with families, I do a thorough assessment. So I look at all those different things and I suggest to them what I think is going to work well and talk through that with them. Because sometimes small tweaks can make a big difference as well.
Yeah. And it doesn't even need to be a big shift in the routine, but we are in this family dynamic in kind of in the thick. We don't see where we could adjust a little bit here or there. And then there are siblings who would also need to be they need to be taken into consideration when we change the bedtime routine with one child. So how can that fit with the siblings?
Yeah, and that's exactly what I talk to families about in their unique situation, because often I will have families who do have more than one child, or they're doing bedtime with an older child and a baby, and perhaps dad's away, like work away, or does shift work or something, mum's doing it on their own, and we have to talk about realistically what can you manage as well. Because if something's not manageable, you don't feel comfortable with it, you're probably not going to see it through and it's not going to work. So I always want it to work for every family, of course. So that's part of my work as well.
Yeah. Can you tell us whom you work with? Like, what is the age group you work with, and what are the biggest issues that you help with?
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, I do work with a lot of under twos. So I do work with babies from birth. The youngest I worked with, I think, was 2 weeks old, and I had a 3-week-old last week. So obviously that's not any kind of like formal sleep training. It's those laying those foundations. And the mum I spoke to last week actually has an older child, and sleep didn't go great, so wanted to start very early with second child. So yeah, I mean, I've worked with babies from birth. I do have a workshop that's actually for expectant parents too, so even if you just want to know more, that's there as well. I do work with a lot of families where children are kind of under the age of 2, but saying that, I do actually work with children up to age 10. So I have worked with 10-year-olds. I've worked with a few 8-year-olds, sort of quite a few sort of 5, 6, starting school, things like that. So yeah, quite a range, to be honest. It's quite varied.
So it's never too late, actually.
No, exactly. In fact, one of the first families I worked with, we're talking now over 3 years ago, the little girl was 8 and had never slept through the night. And mum came to me saying, is this even possible? Like, do most 8-year-olds sleep through the night? She didn't really even know. And she said, I just feel like it's so ingrained now that she's never going to. She just comes into my bedroom. She repeatedly comes downstairs at bedtime, is in my room, wanting to sleep in with me. This little girl just didn't have the skills to sleep independently because she'd never done it and didn't know what to do. So she just needed that clear plan and guidance and some reassurance and support, really, that actually, yeah, your daughter can do this. She will be able to. We didn't do anything drastic. We gave the little girl the skills, like I said, and I supported mum to go to sleep peacefully. She was obviously, a very anxious little one. I say little, not really that little, but she was obviously very anxious about going to sleep on her own. So, we addressed that, and yeah, we did figure it out, and she did start sleeping through the night. So It is possible. It's not too late. I do get lots of people that message me and go, oh, my child's 18 months, is it too late? And I'm like, no, it's not. Absolutely not.
I love to hear that. And I love to hear that you also support the moms on that journey, not seeing it just like just the baby or the child, but it's actually a dynamic between the child and the mom where the mom also needs the support so that she can become, in order to guide and support better and more calming bedtime.
Yeah, exactly. And I think when you've got a baby that doesn't sleep well, or a child that doesn't sleep well, there's often that anxiety for parents around sleep, like what's tonight going to be like, how long is it going to take to settle them? And children can pick up on that. So helping them is also part of the job so that they, like you said, can support their baby or their child.
Yeah. I will put all your links in the show notes of this episode so that the moms can, figure out which of your offers suits them best. I love the one prenatal.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because I would have needed that. I had no idea about. I was so blue about, or green, or how does one say? I didn't know anything about sleep, so I was completely taken by surprise. I would have needed that
Yeah.
that course, or just that information, the awareness, so that I wouldn't feel as much of a failure as I did.
Yeah. Oh, it's horrible to think that you felt like that. I think it's the one thing that at antenatal classes isn't really covered. And I think it's because they don't want to like scare parents, or they do talk about birth a lot, don't they? But they don't want to like scare parents into thinking they're not going to get any sleep, because like I said, every baby's different. Some will sleep absolutely fine.
Yeah.
But I think it's having those realistic expectations and knowing actually it is normal that your baby may want to sleep on you all the time. Like I thought there was something wrong with my baby because I couldn't put her down ever. Just wasn't prepared for that at all. And I also thought, I've got this beautiful Moses basket that my baby's going to sleep in. When they were talking about co-sleeping, I thought, well, that's not for me because I'm not going to do that. And I was very naive in thinking, but I just don't need to really pay that much attention to that bit because that's not part of my plan. When actually, I mean, my children didn't co-sleep very well, but I did try and do it just to get some sleep. So I did need to know that stuff. So I do think it is useful just to have those more realistic expectations as well, and know that actually what you're experiencing is normal.
Exactly. And when you are experiencing difficulties, even in the beginning, your child is sleeping, but then they hit a milestone and they just don't sleep anymore. So you remember, oh, there was something. I remember there was something. Can I go back to that? And I think that is so, so valuable.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Lindsey. I love your work, and I wish I would have known you when my little one, my big little one, was born. Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. It's been lovely to chat. And yeah, feel free if anyone's kind of listening to this, needs help with sleep, like please feel free to get in touch because, I'm always here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, guys, for listening. And I see you next time at Raw and Real with Stephanie Fernandez.